Hi, I'm doing a test recording to see if this will work for Ken's tutorial. Okay, so here we have the F1 engine. It has both a sculpted portion and it also has a static portion. The static portion has no sculpted detail. It was meant to be just hard surface modeling from Maya. We have it imported in here just like yours to show where the connections are so that the sculpting is a little bit more understandable. So you're going to go ahead and click on your sculpted portion, which they should be separate in your subtools. If not, you need to go ahead and separate them. And then we're going to export the high poly sculpt to retopologize in Maya. So you're clicked on it, you come up here to export tool, and you export it. I'm gonna just go ahead and export to my desktop for ease of development. So we'll do F1 engine high poly. Let's make a new folder. F1 engine tutorial. Save. It's going to do a little exporting. Your Trello question said you were concerned that it had too many points, and you mentioned 42 million. I found a forum question that was very similar, and the algorithmic people say that yeah, like 42 million should be just fine, and I'll link that forum to your Trello card. So that went ahead and exported. So we'll come over here to the empty scene and we will import it. So we're going to import. We're going to go to our desktop. Go here, go to your high poly, and import our OBJ. That's going to take a little bit of time. And at the same time, we're also going to need to import our static, just like we had in Zbrush, because again, it's going to be part of the low poly, or it needs to be retopologized as well into a low poly version of the static. So we're going to come in here. This is our high poly version. It was two different poly groups, so that's why it exported as two different groups. That's fine. That way it can be kind of easier to retopologize different shapes if you need to, but for now we'll just group them together. We'll go ahead and import our static, which is in this location. I'm not sure where it would be for yours, but yeah, this is just where we keep all the files here. Okay, so all these together too, so we don't have to look at them all the time. So now we have our high poly and our static, and we'll go ahead and start retopologizing for a lower density version that still follows all the organic shapes. So you're going to come over here, you're going to click the part that you're going to retopologize, and you're going to make it live, so that any shapes that we add to it will kind of stick to the surface. Then we're going to go to our modeling toolkit and we will start creating stuff. So go ahead and select the shape that you intend to start retopologizing and make it live. So now that anything that we make will stick to the shape, and that will continue to be the case until you turn it off. So even if you quit out of the quad draw tool, which is your retopologizing tool, you still can't move or do much unless it's sticking to this shape. So remember to turn this off when you're not retopologizing. So you retopologize with the quad draw tool, and yeah, you just start playing around with it. Make sure to read your shortcuts. I use quite a few shortcuts. and I'll try to explain them as I do a little bit of a demonstration here. So just drawing out the points is just your regular left mouse button click. And then to actually draw the quad, you press shift and then click inside, and you just kind of keep doing that. You could just draw out all the points first and then make the quads afterwards, but it's really whatever you want to do. I like making these quads because it makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something. So we'll just draw out a bunch of quads. Boop, 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 boop. And then, yeah. So it's going underneath this shape because we only made this bell shape live. As you saw earlier, 2 things imported in when we imported the high poly, because it was in 2 different poly groups, and that's intentional because, say, we wanted to retopologize this awkward shape separately from this awkward shape, right? I think in most cases, I would actually want the shapes to be together to be retopologized, so let's go ahead and do that instead. So we'll actually just import, or we can make both of these objects live. I think, oh, it is live. Okay, they're both live. That's fine. So we go back and we click on the poly that we just made. Like if you accidentally deselect during your retopology phase and you don't have quad draw turned on anymore, it'll make your polygon right there. So we have our polygon, and let me show you what I mean when I say that if you're not retopologizing and you just are trying to move stuff, it's not really going to work because it wants to hold on to the live surface. So just make sure to turn that off when you're not retopologizing. But we still are retopologizing, so we're going to keep using it. So I just clicked on quad draw again, and I'm going to add some more points, add some more polys. And basically, you can just start using the shortcuts to make this look nicer. So right now it's kind of uneven, you know, because I just did it by hand. Well, there's the relax function, which is shift on top of polys you've already made, and you just shift and smooth, basically. So what I generally do is, yeah, you can also press control and add loops, which is also how I like to do it. I like to add bigger chunks of geo and then add loops in between and then smooth it out. What relax does is it tries to keep an even amount of space between each of the points that it's relaxing around. So it's really useful for when you're trying to make everything even and logical. Like this bell you would normally expect to see very even amounts of space between each of the loops, right? So that's what relax does for you. You don't have to do it by eye or anything. So relax kind of does that mathematically. Now you see that this is all getting screwy because we didn't add the rest of the loop there, but we can go ahead and do that. Yeah. So retopologizing, you know, is going to take a while, but it should definitely give you a very nice organic shape to the sculpt that you've made in Zbrush. And yeah, it automatically tries to conform your retopology to the live high poly version. So we'll just kind of relax that. So yeah, you just kind of work on that until you're done or it's been approved. I'd like to see the retopology that you've done before you move on to UVs / texturing, just because maybe there needs to be some more resolution. Like in this case, you'd want to see loops here for this thing, right? You'd think that there'd be loops there to give it its shape, right? So I don't know. There's just a bunch of different things that can happen there. So we'll pretend that we've finished, and I'll go to my other file that actually is retopologized. And this has, you know, your high poly underneath, and it also has your low poly that's been created. and you would just export out these two different files to go to Substance Painter. So it's highly advised by the Substance algorithmic people that you label your things low and high, because Substance will also look at the names to kind of bake everything. So once you're at this stage with the low and high poly versions built, we will go and bake everything in Substance Painter, which I need to go grab the license of, so I'll be back. We'll go ahead and export out the different aspects to bring into Substance Painter. So what I like to do is, select both the static and the low, and export out them together, because you're going to need to texture everything, so of course you need to export them out together. So say low poly. Again, using the naming conventions is good because Substance does look at that. And then for the high, we will actually also export out the static with it, unlike what we did in Zbrush, because the bake is going to bake this too. It's going to bake the high poly onto the low poly, and if you don't have the static on the high poly as well as the low poly, then it's going to be baking from nothing, which we don't want. So we'll export that selection and we'll call it high poly. And we'll go ahead and start a new file. We want metallic roughness with alpha blend in case there's any alphas that need to happen. We select our low poly as our file that we're actually painting on, because that's the more efficient one. We want OpenGL because that's what Digistar 7 likes, and we'll press OK. And there's our low poly. So now we just need to bake the high poly onto it. So we go over to our texture set settings and we bake mesh maps. I'm going to turn all these off for now because I only want to bake the normal to show you, but yeah, you should be able to bake all of these with your high poly. So we'll go ahead and click our high poly, and usually you play with these if you want. I think you've already done that kind of stuff before, but we'll just leave everything as it is for examples. But these can always be changed to make it look nicer. So we'll go ahead and bake it. This might be a problem with your low poly or high poly. I'd say don't worry about it unless it prevents you from baking or prevents you from seeing something that should be there. But as you can see, even with that error down there, it looks like it baked just fine. You can see all the detail from the sculpt, but it's been baked into the normal map of the low poly. So let's take a look at it real quick. Yeah, so that came out fairly nicely. It's nice and efficient, but it's got all that nice wrinkly detail that came from our sculpt. So yeah, that looks pretty good. And then you can of course go ahead and bake all the other types of maps on there as you need as well. But yeah, that's how you do it. That's the process. And you just paint as you need. Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.